Hey, so welcome everyone. Let's kick it off. So this is a our quick agenda for today. In the first part of the session, we'll have Christina Muya from Rising Youth. We'll give her a little bit of an introduction after this. She'll be talking about taking it global. She'll give a little bit of an introduction to Rising Youth, the Rising Youth requirements, as well as some guidelines in the age of COVID. And she'll finish off with some frequently asked questions. And you'll have an opportunity to ask her some questions at the end of the session as well. In the second part of the session, it'll be ID presenting, and we'll go over some project ideation tips, what we consider eligible expenses, some examples of project ideas and budgets specifically for the Afghan community, and then examples of project descriptions for the sign-up form, and we'll wrap up with our support structure, our deadlines, our next steps, and resources that we have in place for you. Sorry, Khalid, I don't think you're sharing your screen anymore. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. So there's some we had a poll question, but there's some technical difficulties. So maybe we'll skip the first one. So just moving right ahead. Go for it, Margila.
What is the Afghan Community Impact Incubator? So if you're here, most likely you've probably seen some of our social media posts where we ask, do you have a youth community project idea, but you require some funding to launch it? Do you have an idea how to support the community through small scale projects that are virtual or remote, and you just don't know where to start? So that's probably what got your attention to bring you here today. So the question that we asked is, are you a change maker? And we definitely believe that everyone on this call is a change maker. So what is ACII? ACII is a fast-paced one-month program that offers you ideation and project design advice. It offers you a grant writing and application workshop, which will be mandatory to attend. You will have access to up to $1,500 in Rising Youth funding if you collaborate with us and you sign up for our workshop. And then you will have guidance to launch your project in the end.
Yeah, and so what is IDEATION and Rising Youth? So a lot of you know IDEATION, but some of you may not know what Rising Youth is, and Christina will be talking more about what Rising Youth and Taking It Global are. But the purpose of this program, like Margila said, is to support youth aged 15 to 30 years old to implement community service projects for the Afghan Canadian community by providing financial support. So the financial support is provided by Rising Youth, which is a project under Taking It Global. And what's unique about this partnership with IDEATION is that it is designed for Afghan Canadian youth, and so it's for you. And this is important because, you know, Afghan youth groups are often underfunded and require adequate and safe resources. And so hopefully this program helps fill that gap. If you've had an idea and just weren't able to work on it because of funding issues or other support issues, we're here to help make that happen. There is an application that you'll have to submit to Rising Youth, but we want to note that this program is non-competitive. That means that as long as you sign up with us, as long as you participate in all steps in our program, and you ensure that your project meets the eligibility criteria, you will receive up to $1,500 in funding because of the partnership that we have. So we're really excited about our partnership and about making this opportunity open for the Afghan Canadian youth community. And so before we get into more, we're just going to pass it on to Christina, who will be introducing Rising Youth and talking more about the program. So Christina is a partnership lead and data administrator from Rising Youth. She came to Canada as a teenager, so she understands the firsthand experience of being a first-generation Canadian and navigating a new country as a young person. Christina has worked and volunteered with the public sector and several nonprofits, and she's passionate about supporting youth to take up leadership and make positive changes they would like to see in their communities. Previously, Christina worked on Taking It Global's Rwanda Huguka Dikori project, and she's excited to rejoin Taking It Global's Rising Youth project as a partnership lead and data administrator. Recently, she was a part of the 2019 ACII Youth Policymakers Hub. Christina loves traveling, a good adventure, watching sitcoms, comedies, and solving complex and simple problems, including playing online games. without further ado, I'll pass it on to Christina. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Khalida, for the introduction. Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Sometimes I have audio issues, so I gotta make sure you guys are hearing me. Yeah, it's nice to see you all here. So this is a really great turnout. I'm really excited to have you all here. As Khalida mentioned, we're in partnership between IDEATION and TakingITGlobal, Rising Youth. And I'm gonna walk you through that overview, but I'm really excited that we're able to finally do this. And hopefully you're gonna have another workshop coming up next week as well, where hopefully I'll see all of you. So we'll start sharing my screen. All right, so yeah, so we're a Rising Youth Community Service Grants. So this is a program that's funded by the federal government under the Canada Service Corps, and right now it's administered by TakingITGlobal. And we're actually working with a lot of other organizations that work with different communities across the country. And so IEDI is just one of them, and we're really happy to be in partnership with them as well. So we work with indigenous communities in the northern region. We work with communities that work with refugees and newcomers across the country. We also work with visible minority groups as well, and also youth with disabilities as well. And so before we start, I want to do an acknowledgement. I'm based in Toronto. I think most of you are. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you're not, this is not an acknowledgement for your area. But I would encourage you to find out, how you can acknowledge territory that you're on right now. And so we would like to acknowledge that the land where we live, work, and rest is a traditional and ancestral territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So in case you're wondering, who TakingITGlobal is and what we're about, it's we've been around for over about 20 years now. 2019 was the 20th year anniversary, and the organization was actually started by teenagers who are passionate about two different things. One of them was passionate about technology, and the other was passionate about gender equality, and they kind of came together, and it became more about supporting young people to be able to make changes, to be change makers in the world through harnessing technology and through education as well. And so our mission is to enable young people to understand and act on the world's greatest challenges. And our vision is for youth everywhere to be actively engaged and connected in shaping a more inclusive, peaceful, sustainable world. And so Rising Youth is a very Canadian-centered program. So we're only funding youth who are Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or youth with refugee status specifically. But we've had programs at TakingITGlobal which have been international. We've worked in different countries around the world. We've worked in the Middle East and the Northern region for certain projects. We've worked in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa as well, Central America, and Southeast Asia. And so with Rising Youth, TakingITGlobal is looking for young people who are inspired with ideas and ready to take action through youth-led community service grants. And the objective is to empower young people between 15 and 30 to be able to imagine ideas that can support their local community. And we help put those ideas into action, which, as Khalida and Mahila mentioned, you're going to go through the ideation process later on. So we put those ideas into action through three different micro grants, 250, 750, and 1500, which I'll walk you through in the next slide. And we also provide ongoing project support to make sure your projects are thriving and successful. And we do this mostly through partners like AYEDI. So because it's hard for us to support all youth that are coming to apply for the grants, but through community service organizations, we're able to actually have more impact because these organizations already know the youth. Some of them are part of that community, so we know that they understand their youth better. And so that's a way that we are more effective with our work as well. And we also have a very strong team as well that can support you at any point if you have any questions. Yeah, and so we have 4 different phases within Rising Youth. So there's a design stage, apply stage, launch stage, and share stage. And I'm in the partnership and outreach team, which is the first stage of Rising Youth, and that's in the design phase. And so I work with organizations or partners, in Ontario, Alberta, and BC as well, to be able to kind of support them in understanding how Rising Youth works and supporting their youth to be able to apply. And I also support young people within workshops to be able to either ideate or understand how to apply, and kind of ensure that they're putting together a successful project that will be funded. And then once you apply, you go through the grants administration team, where you're given like one-on-one support for your application if you have any questions before it's approved. But the thing is that because it's not competitive, anybody gets approved. Everybody gets approved. The only thing is that if your project is not up to par, we will have to, talk with you maybe on a call to just ensure that you can like flesh out your idea further so that you can get funded. And so, we don't really say no to anyone. We just want to make sure that your project is fundable. So, we will work one-on-one with you within that application stage. And then once you apply and you launch your project, if you have any questions, or concerns, you can always reach out to us or reach out to Khalida, and she can reach out to me as well. And lastly, you share your impact. So we want to see young people be able to amplify their stories and amplify the impact they're having within community. And so, we have you can share on the social media if you'd like and tag us. You can write a blog about the impact you've had. You could appear on our podcast as well, or you could be in our magazine as well. So we have different avenues where you can share your stories. But none of this is like asking to share your stories is not. You don't have to if you don't want to, because sometimes we understand that youth deal with sensitive issues and experiences within their projects, and so but like there's no it's not mandatory for you to share your story. You only share your story if you're comfortable with doing that. And then lastly, once you're done with being able to amplify your story and you're done with your project, we also have an alumni network, which is a growing network of young people across the country who have done Rising Youth projects in the last 2.5 years. And you'll be able to engage with them and meet them as well, collaborate on different projects if you'd like to. So this is also a way for you to grow your own network, and hopefully also you can also strengthen your career journey as well. So I would encourage you, if you do apply for these projects, make sure you complete them successfully and report back, because it really gives you a lot more opportunities with us. As I mentioned before, we have 3 levels of grants: the 250, 750, and 1,500. And so the 250 and 750 grants are for individual youth. And so the first one, it could be a very simple idea. It could be a 1-time or 2-time gathering that you would like to have, or maybe you kind of like would like to engage community in conversations that are relevant to you and them as well. For the 750 grant, those are bigger ideas. And so we've had youth, put together like community gardens, for example. But this is probably more feasible, when it's much warmer, like between April and August or September. And we've seen a lot of young people actually within COVID-19 deliver care packages. So that's something that's been very popular. And so sometimes they'll deliver food packages to families in need within their community, or deliver care packages for frontline workers due to COVID-19, just showing them support. So there are different ways that you can actually show support to your community. And these are just ideas, but like I'm sure a lot of you here are creative and you can come up with some really cool stuff as well, which you've seen youth do. Because we understand that this is not a lot of money, but if you're creative, you can actually do a lot with this actually. So just thinking about how you can tap into your creative juices. And then lastly, we have the 1,500 grant, which is the team grant. And so for this grant, you have to be at least a youth of like 3 or more people. So you have to be at least 3 youth or more. And so within this grant, you have to obviously be able to drive a bit of a larger community impact. And all these projects actually, all these different grants need a budget. And so you should be able to put together a budget that shows how you're going to allocate funds across your project activities, and then come to the total that you ask for. And then lastly, you also require a community mentor for all these different grants. So that could be Khalida, it could be someone on the IDEATION team as well. That could be somebody who you could put down as a community reference. And what that means is like they will support you with your application or give you mentorship if you have any questions around your project. Like they're there to support you. And in terms of the requirements of the grants, actually a lot of federal government grants are usually very stringent and very detailed and just have a lot of requirements. But actually Rising Youth is not too hectic. It's actually pretty straightforward in terms of what they're asking and what's what's being required of you and before you apply. So one thing is like we want to see young people take leadership and initiative. And so we want to see that the project is initiated and led by a young person between 15 and 30. So like if an organization will support a young person to be able to develop the idea further, but we don't expect that the organization will dictate what the youth does. It's more of just supporting them to reach their goals and the impact that they would like to have. And so we want to see the young person identify the issue, propose a solution, and implement the solution in the community themselves. And of course, yeah, if you need support from the partner of the organization, feel free to reach out to AYEDI as well. And then the project should be done towards volunteer time. So like these are volunteer grants, so you can't pay yourself through the grant funds. Like you can give yourself an honorarium within the budget, but you could allocate funds across project activities, any project activity really. So it could be transportation if you're delivering care packages. So you could cover transportation if you have to go to the grocery store, get supplies, and then maybe go to, I don't know, maybe a homeless shelter and deliver there. You can cover the transportation between those trips that involve your project. If you're thinking of having an in-person engagement, which I guess most of you won't because of the restrictions of COVID-19, then maybe if you have participants coming to that, then you will probably buy them food or something like that. That's also covered. Also buying like PPE equipment as well, masks, things like that you might need to ensure that you're safe is also covered. The only thing you can't do is just you can't pay yourself from the grant money. But if you do hire, for example, like a facilitator or someone to come in and run a workshop, you could pay them. Or if you hire like a graphic designer, then you could pay them through the funds because they're helping you they're helping you do something that you can't necessarily do, you don't have the skill to do. But if you apply for the grants, you can't give yourself an honorarium. But if you do get involved with our alumni network, the opportunities for leadership and continual engagement where we can have you facilitate workshops with us at TakingITGlobal and pay you, or there's different ways around how, being able to continually engage with us in ways that you can actually be able to either be on contract or be a consultant with us as well after you finish your project successfully. And as I mentioned before, we can cover anything as long as you're not paying yourself. So, if you have a child and you want to cover childcare costs because you're going to be away for a few hours, feel free to allocate those funds towards that. And then funds cannot be used to make a donation to a charity or benefit a single individual organization. Yeah, so that's yes, that's straightforward. So you can't just benefit one person. You will need to be able to benefit, at least within the community. And even within the application, they do ask you, like, what's your estimated number of impact in terms of number of community members. So you should just have an estimated number in mind for that. And the project cannot be done on behalf of an organization unless it's volunteer-led.
And I just wanted to add, these are great points, and we'll be going over some of these eligible expenses and budgets like later on in the presentation as well, just to let everyone know.
Okay, thank you for that, Khalida. The project cannot be done in continuation of a program already offered by an existing organization. And if you would like, for example, if you're buying technology or equipment for your school or for your, if you're buying technology or equipment for your project, because sometimes we've seen young people put together like photography projects where they want to buy, photography equipment. That's still covered by the grant money. The only thing is you can't keep the equipment. You have to donate it to a school or a community organization. So like you could buy this equipment, but when you're done, maybe you'll need to donate it to AYEDI. So that's just a requirement from the government. So this is what they expect us to do. So when you're filling in your application and you have bought equipment, we ask you on the application who do you plan to donate to, and we ask for their information, contact information as well. And if you're buying technology or equipment, you also need to show a service behind what you're doing. Like we've had sometimes young people buy iPads, so they will sit behind their desk and they will order iPads for some community members, which is great, but we want to see you do more than that, like engage community in different ways. And so like the different ideas, you can get creative. You've seen people do virtual walks, for example, so there's different ways around that, but just buying equipment and just sending it to somebody like by mail is not really enough service. So we want to see you do more than that. And then lastly, you're required to submit a report with photos and receipts within 30 days of completing your project. So, that's straightforward. So the report is pretty simple. It takes like half an hour to fill it out. So, it's nothing that takes too much time. And some of the guidelines we have in the age of COVID-19 are, we actually don't have any strict we don't have anything like that we're strict about within COVID-19 projects. We just want to ensure that you're safe, that your team is safe, and everybody that you're engaging with is also safe. That's the most important thing for us. And so most projects that we've seen have been virtual, but we don't discourage you from doing an outdoor project as long as you're doing it safely. Some COVID-19 projects have been about delivering care packages to community members. So, like those are all ideas that you can think about if you want to do something that's more outdoor, but ensure that you keep your volunteer team and community members safe. So make sure that everybody has the right PPE equipment, they have masks and sanitizers as needed, and you can get all that with the grant funds. And then on the application, we do ask you that, that you agree that your project will comply with all applicable health and safety guidelines. So make sure you understand what the local or provincial guidelines are around COVID-19, and make sure that you are keeping up to date with that when you're engaging in community, so that you can make sure that you're doing the right thing. I think right now we're heading into red zone from what Ford was saying. So just make sure that if you're doing an outdoor activity, that you are safe. And then probably the last section. This is the last section. So some of the FAQs that we've seen young people ask us, is who can apply to these funds. And so as I mentioned before, someone who's aged between 15 and 30. If you're a Canadian citizen, you can apply. If you're a permanent resident, you can apply. And if you have refugee status, you can also apply as well. And so if you're an organization, can you apply to the grants? The answer is no, you can't apply as an organization, but you can apply as an individual or a group of youth. And you can plan to do like different community initiatives through that. And so organization can support youth initiated projects. The organizations themselves are not eligible to receive funding. So when will I receive the grant funding? So actually applications are reviewed on an ongoing basis. This is not accurate. We're pretty quick right now. We have a very strong grants team. So it would take at least between 8 to 30 days to hear back from us. But it only takes 30 days only if your application is not up to par, and we need to talk to you further and be able to kind of help you flesh out your idea. But if your project is well done and everything is good to go, you can hear back from us within a week and a half, and get the funding sent to you. As I mentioned, and then as I mentioned, like all the grants require a community reference or mentor. So that's just somebody that you trust in a community who you think can be able to coach you and advise you during your project development and implementation. And yeah, so how many grant applications can you submit? You can apply twice to the program as an individual. So you can apply for a COVID-19 related project and the one that's non-COVID-19 related. So like that's how we'll be able to approve you. But the thing is, like, we won't approve you for the second project until you complete your first project. So ensure that you complete your first project successfully first. That's how you're able to apply for the second one. But you can be involved in multiple group projects. So you could be in even like 5 group projects if you would like to be with this grant. So like I usually encourage you to take part in team projects, because you get to learn more when you work with other people. And then when can you start your project? You can start your project within 3 months of when you get approved, and then it should be completed within 5 months of receiving the funding. And we do ask you for a start date and an end date within the application as well. And I'm sure you'll get that next week. And what happens after you receive your grant funding? So you start implementing your project, and then we require the report back to us as well. And that's due within 30 days of completing your project. We do have a project report on our website, or you can also download our app as well. Our mobile app, which is hashtag RisingYouth. And so, the mobile app is just an easy way for you to be able to take photos at any point or keep track of your receipts so you don't lose them. And then once you're done, then you can just press submit, and it's just, it's good to go. But you can also access it offline as well. So, I encourage you to download the app, but you don't have to if you don't feel comfortable with that. You can also just use our report on our website. Yeah, so thank you for that. These are some of the resources that we have, but I won't get into this because of time. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm done with that. Half an hour, sorry. It took a lot longer than I thought.
No, no problem. And that was really detailed, and it was a great overview. So thank you so much, Christina. I think you'll be hanging around. So maybe if people have questions at the end, we'll answer them, because maybe some of your questions will be answered in the second half. I know there was a question about specific eligible expenses, and we definitely will be talking about that. And that might have seemed like a lot of information, and today you will get a lot of information, but just be reassured that we're gonna, tomorrow we'll have a section on our website that will have today's presentation and all of the resources, some of the ones Christina mentioned and some of our own, will all be on the website. And as part of this program, you will be guided through all of those steps. So you don't need to worry about, oh, do I have to keep track of all these things? We're here to support you and guide you through all of that. So we'll move right along to the second part. Everyone can see my screen, right? Cool. Okay, so we'll talk more. We're gonna go into, Christina hit on some things. We're gonna go in a bit more detail about this, some of the things that she talked about. So project ideation tips. So again, this is an information session, so we won't be going to a lot of detail about how to make a plan and all that. A lot of that will be during next week's grant writing and ideation workshop. But here are some tips for some of you who might not know, you want to apply, but you're not sure of like what kind of idea. These are some good questions to ask yourself. So one is, how is my identity connected to what I care about? So here you can think about the many identities that you hold. For example, it could be as an Afghan. For me personally, it could be as the children of refugees, the children of immigrants who came here looking for a better life. Your gender, your age, the community you live in might be a big part of your identity. The causes that you're passionate about could be a part of your identity. So when you're developing an idea, this is a good place to start so that your project becomes something that is meaningful to you and your community. The second part is, what are the issues and which one do I connect with or feel most passionate about? And so once you've thought about your identity, you can think about issues or gaps in these areas that you think you can address, right? So for example, as an Afghan Canadian, I personally feel like more work can be done to increase civic and political engagement amongst young Afghans. And so that's an example of identifying a gap and then maybe gearing a project towards filling that gap. The third one is, how can the changes that I would like to see in my neighborhood and community translate to changes I would envision in my city, in my province, in my country, or even globally? So this point is just encouraging you to step back and think about the big picture of your idea. Whether it's an awareness project that you do or an action-based project, it's good to think about the ripple effects that your project can have beyond the immediate community. And here it might be nice, if it's possible, to consider collaboration as well, so that you can amplify your impact. And we strongly recommend that your project should involve either having newcomer refugee Afghans helping as part of the team that leads your project, or incorporate outreach to those groups within your project to make sure that they're involved. And we know that even amongst Afghans, there are communities that are more marginalized, they're more underrepresented. And so we encourage you to engage in reflection when engaging with these sort of sub-communities. Please also note that while your project should be primarily led by youth age 15 to 30, the project itself does not necessarily have to only address youth issues. It could address kind of broader issues or a broader audience in our community. So here's all about the money. So what can the money be used towards? So we strongly encourage you to aim for the $1,500 grant. So I know Christina talked about the 3 levels, and we encourage everyone to apply for the $1,500 one. And so here are some examples of eligible expenses, and this list is not exhaustive. It's just some common expenses maybe that you might arise. So for example, you can use the money towards providing honoraria, and only a maximum of $450 can go towards this. So this includes things like paying guest speakers, facilitators, instructors, graphic designers, website designers, translators, even elders. So let's say, even though your project is youth-led, if you want to incorporate or invite someone who's older in the community to help be a part of your project as a facilitator or something, you can provide them with an honoraria. Another important expense is food. So, takeout, if you do an online webinar, for example, and you want to give your participants gift codes for Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes, you can do reimbursements. So you let them buy what they want and then they send you the receipt and you reimburse them, however you want to do it. But food is an eligible expense. Transportation. So if you do choose to hold an in-person event, following the public health guidelines and being very careful, tokens, tickets can count, childcare, transportation, mileage reimbursement, or if there's any transportation that you are required to do to implement the project, so maybe you have to drive somewhere or take the bus somewhere or whatever it is, that can also be eligible. Room booking or space rental, again, this is if it is in person and following COVID guidelines, that's eligible. Webinar platform subscriptions, so let's say you organize a games night or something and you don't have, you know, a subscription, you can purchase a Zoom, Google Hangouts, WebEx, or whatever it is. Marketing or promoting your event. So if you want to run digital ads, newspaper ads, you want to make a website to help promote your project, that's eligible. Materials, so if you want to provide participants with booklets, you need to buy papers, postcards, pens, if you want to make a journal. Any equipment, so Christina talked about this, so there's a caveat that if you buy equipment, it's not something that you can keep after the project, you will need to donate it. But if you do choose to go that route, you can only spend a maximum of half the grant on equipment. And then the other side is you can do equipment like, for example, if you do a COVID project, you can spend it on personal protective equipment, such as masks, gloves, and stuff like that. Supplies, so again, paper, craft supplies, and other. So just general stuff like, you know, if you want to do a games night, like I said, you can, or, you know, purchase a subscription to Jackbox. If you want to, you know, do a movie night and you could rent a movie. If you do a mental health webinar and you want to give some subscriptions to a mental health app, for example, those all fall under eligible expenses. And the next part is what is not eligible. So Christina did talk about these things, but we do think it's important just to say it again because it is just something important. So you cannot use the funds towards a fundraising or for an external cause. Cannot be the continuation of an existing program. So if you already have a program running and you want to use this fund to continue it, that's not eligible. It has to be a new program or idea that you thought of. It should be done on behalf of volunteers. So, you know, if you work for like a charity or something, like this funding is not eligible for you if you're applying on behalf of the charity. But as an individual, it could be. You cannot give honoraria to yourself or the immediate team members on your project. So the project must be volunteer-led. However, you may reimburse yourself for travel or child-related costs if those are applicable. So if anyone has questions about that, I guess, again, we'll hold it till the end just to get through everything, and then we'll take questions at the end. So when you're thinking about a budget in general, eventually as part of the process, if you apply for the $1,500 grant, you will be required to submit a budget. And so these are some useful categories to consider, like breaking it down. Space rental, food supplies, marketing, promotion, materials, equipment, honoraria, and other. And so when you apply for the budget, I'm just gonna show, there's a budget template that's provided to you. And it looks like this, and Christina definitely has probably seen tons of these. And so this is the budget template. This is not something you'll have to submit when you sign up with us, but it's something that you'll have to submit later on as part of your final application. And so you'll have to lay out how much you're spending in general in each category in a brief description. So this will be available again on our website after the info session. And as always, if you have any questions at any point, you're welcome to ask us about this. I also want to note that we will help you form a budget at our grant writing workshop next Saturday. So we'll go into more details about this stuff. So if you're unsure about exact expenses you might have right now about your idea, don't worry, don't stress. It's okay, but it's not a bad idea to start thinking about some sort of expenses. And again, we want to reiterate that we strongly encourage you to apply for the $1,500 budget and find ways to use that full budget. And so we're going to help you kind of go through and think about some eligible expenses if that's something that you're struggling with coming up with. Okay.
So Khalida just talked about assisting you with, in case you are struggling with finding some eligible expenses. So for example, if your project idea is an online workshop or an event, and we know that online workshops, they defy boundaries and they allow us in the age of COVID to bring our projects to life based on our interests, but how would we budget for that kind of workshop, and how would we divide that within a $1,500 grant? So a $1,500 grant can be divided in, for example, your online subscription for a meeting platform, around $20, the honorarium for speakers or educators, you can do $75 times 6, which would be $450, a food delivery service gift card for attendees, you can do $25 gift cards up to 40 attendees for $1,000, and posters and advertisement for $30. So that could be, and that's an example way of how you could kind of formulate your budget to meet the grant requirements. And there will be a lot more ideas similar to this and ways to break down your budget on our resource hub after the info session. And then Khalid, I will give you some more examples that are Afghan community specific. We've got lots of ideas for you.
Exactly. So here are some example ideas. Again, if you don't know where to start or you have a rough idea, again, this will be available on our website, but you know, you could do an Afghan poetry slam night, you know, to express raw perspectives on daily life experience and hopes for the future. You can do an online Afghan youth magazine featuring poetry, commentary. You could start a weekly book club or read along night, and you can use the money to buy books for the people in your program and mail it out to them. You could do a wellness webinar. You could do any general webinar that raises awareness about an issue or initiates a discussion about an important issue. You could do a photo and video exhibit featuring knowledge shared by Afghan community elders. And you could do any COVID project. So for example, you could provide a lot of local Afghan businesses might be struggling during the pandemic. So you could help provide them with PPE. You could help them make a website maybe to get their business online, since a lot of Afghans may not be aware of how to do that. You can help them set up social media. These are all kind of some example ideas. Even more examples, so you could do some sort of poster competition. You could do a nutrition workshop to teach people about healthy food choices. You could do a park day cleanup. You could just organize a fun day with the community with games, music, and team building stations. Again, following very strict COVID guidelines. This may or may not be possible right now with the weather changing, but it is something that you can consider. And you could host a financial literacy workshop to help others learn about money and budgeting. So these are more generic ideas, but again, it's just to say that the possibilities are almost endless as long as you're within like those eligibility criteria. It's really thinking about what you're passionate about and where you want to take it. We also have, and Christina mentioned these, Rising Youth has made available some really detailed descriptions of project ideas. So this will be on our website. Again, we will email everyone in the webinar, like the links and stuff tomorrow. But they have they go more in depth with these ideas and propose sample budgets. And so that resource will be available to you. They have both virtual ideas and in-person kind of ideas and ways that you can make it safe.
So the Afghan Community Impact Incubator's timeline. So the initial part of the timeline was for you to attend this session, but it was not mandatory. However, what is mandatory is to sign up for ACII by Friday, November 13, 2020, in order for us to essentially be kind of your mentor or community partner in submitting your application to ensure that you are guaranteed that funding. And to ensure that your application is refined and your idea is refined and your grant is up to par. The second part is to receive training during our mandatory ideation and grant writing workshop on Saturday, November 14 from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So if you've signed up and you're here today, you are automatically signed up for our mandatory ideation and grant writing workshop. And that is where we'll see you there. The initial deadline for us is to submit your grant application to ACII by Saturday, November 21st, 2020 for review. So this is not strict. This is just for you to run your application by us, run your budget by us if you have any questions, and we'll kind of give you that green light to be like, everything looks good. And we'll share with you at that stage the link for you to officially submit your application. And deadline that we have set for applications is November 28, 2020. The project needs to be completed by February 28, 2021. And within 30 days of project completion, you have to submit a grant report, and that is mandatory. So the immediate next steps, the immediate next steps is if you attend today, like I mentioned, you are automatically registered for our workshop next Saturday. You will receive an email following this session to confirm your attendance for next week's workshop. At least one member of your team needs to be present. The whole team doesn't need to be present at that workshop. And you must sign up for ACII by Friday, November 13.
So, Margila keeps saying you have to sign up, you have to sign up. And how do you sign up? So on our website, we have a form, and our website is IDEATION/incubator. And, there's a section that says sign up, you click the form, and it's a short form. It's very simple. It'd probably take you 2 minutes to fill it out. Oh, whoops, my email always pops up. The question that's probably with the most writing involved is this question where we ask you to describe your project in a few sentences. And so in just a few slides, we're going to be giving you some example project descriptions, but we just want to point out that this is what it looks like, and the sign up form is due by next Friday, essentially. So it's really short, and again, your idea does not have to be finalized. It's just whatever rough idea you have in mind, you can put it down. It'll help us, give us an idea of what you're thinking about, and how we can maybe support you to further develop it. Oh, so here are some examples. So again, this will be available on our website, but this is some example of how you could describe your project. Again, you can see it's really short and sweet. This is an example of someone who organized an open mic night. We are starting SADD, Student Against Drunk Driving, and we would like to host an open mic night for the middle of January. So you see the first sentence is them saying, what is the event and when is it? It's very clear. For this event, the youth of our community will be raising awareness around the dangers of drunk driving, but also making it fun. Again, one sentence saying, okay, what are the youth doing? Also, we are organizing a sober dance for the youth of Fort Simpson, which includes games, activities, prizes, and snacks. And that last sentence gives an idea of like, what is the budget? What will the money be used for? And you can see here it's games, activities, prizes. It's a very simple overview of what the idea is. And another example is survival skills camp. So take a youth trapping. I would like to take at least 6 youth with my partner to my camp 8 miles out of Aklavik. This was an example by, I think, an indigenous group who applied, but we just included it here. To teach them basic skills to set traps and snares for lynx, beaver, wolves, marten, and wolverine. I would also like to teach them basic survival skills. With the funding, I will be able to make 2 trips. Traditional hunting and trapping skills passed down to me from my grandfather. So obviously with COVID, you probably won't be able to do a camp like that right now, but the point is just the structure of the description, make it clear when your idea is, what is your idea, and what will the youth be doing, and what are some things you might use the funding for. Very short and sweet. So additional support. So aside from those mandatory timelines or deadlines that Margila mentioned, we do offer you extra support. So for example, between now and signing up, or even after signing up, if you need additional support with your application, you can set up time to chat with us, with ID. And if we feel like Christina might need to be looped in, then we will also have her, we can set up something with her as well to answer your questions or review your idea or help review your grant application. We'll have templates and sample applications on our website's resource hub available starting tomorrow. We will review your grant application before you submit it. And when we say review, we don't mean, we'll support any idea you think of. It's more like, just when we say review, we mean we're just going to make sure you're meeting the criteria. So, we don't play a role in, picking on your idea or like actually implementing your project. It's more like making sure you're meeting the broad eligibility criteria. And then once your idea looks good and you meet the criteria, you will be acting as your community mentor to submit your final application, and we'll send you an email with that. I also want to note that this program is designed to support you as much as you want. So if you have experience with grants and you don't feel like you need these additional supports, like setting up a time to chat and all that, you don't have to do that. It's optional. And again, as long as you meet those deadlines, submitting your application by the 21st, attending the grant writing workshop next week, you're good. However, if you are someone who maybe this process is completely new to you, and you do need some extra support, you need someone to run some ideas by, we're definitely here to support you. We don't want, you know, you not knowing how to make a budget or create an idea to be a barrier to you, implementing a project. And so we're here to try to remove those barriers for you in the community. And again, we encourage you to take advantage of this process. If you do, want to continue community work, chances are you will have to develop a lot of project plans, ideas, grants in your future. So this is a great chance for you to develop these kind of skills that you will use throughout your life in community work or beyond. So please do take advantage of the resources that you have. And again, IDEATION is here to support you throughout the way. Okay, actually, before we get there, Margila, is there anything else we wanted to say about that?
No, I think that's perfect. We have about 10 minutes. We can open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll do the poll. So actually, while we do questions, I'm just going to run this poll. So it's anonymous. You can answer, will you be signing up for ACII by next Friday? It should show up on your screen. And in the meantime, again, if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. This is a safe space. You can also chat the questions privately to me if you want me to read the question, and if you're a bit shy or anything like that.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
So sorry. I have a question. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is it's great that you gave examples of possible initiatives, but I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit more on specifically the service aspect of our initiative or the possible initiative, because I feel like service, it could mean a lot of things in a different context, right? Like for instance, let's say you want to work on, let's say your initiative involves around almost like a community archive project, right? And again, it's like, say it's like digital, so there are expenses. It is a service because it does, obviously community members are being impacted by it. Like they get to access it, they get to read it. It's almost like, I guess you could say it could almost be like a blog. I just want to know, would that be legit? Would that work? Would that be considered service oriented?
Yeah,
so that's my question.
Well, thank you for the question. It's a good question. I'll give it an answer, and then I'll let maybe Christina answer as well about the broader definition of service. But your project sounds like it's completely legible. Service, again, the definition, like you said, means different things to people. As long as there's an element of youth benefiting or the community benefiting in some way. And so in your case, the archiving project sounds like it is beneficial to youth. It can increase community wellness, community pride, community awareness. And so that would meet the definition of a service project. But Christina, I don't know if you want to give a more solid definition of what service is according to Rising Youth.
Yeah, there isn't a solid definition because when you apply, we look at each project case by case, right? So it's not it has to be a workshop, or you have to directly engage the community that way. What I would suggest is that you just propose the idea and then kind of see how our grant team responds to it. But what I would say though, from my own understanding, is that if you, for example, do a project where, if you, for example, decide to post something on social media, right, and you're kind of waiting for people to kind of engage with it, for me, that wouldn't be really something that we would find, because it doesn't show that you're doing more to kind of put people into that space, right? So if you, for example, post a blog and you kind of just leave it there and expect people to kind of engage with it, you kind of need to do more so that you can actually see, because you have to put down exactly what number of people you will engage through your project, right? So you have to have kind of an idea of that. And so if you're thinking of doing something that you want to show service, you should have an estimated number of how many people are going to engage and how many community members are going to see it. By the end of the day, also you have to show an impact. So you have to show the impact of it. So for example, if you have a blog post that talks about different issues or a specific issue in the community, how are people engaging with it? What's the outcome of that specific post? And how is it making people feel? So you have to actually answer to those specific things within your report. So thinking about that, then that can also help you think about how you can develop your idea, because you do need to show the outcomes of your project and the impact of your project. So like there's no definition, but I would say like being able to show an estimated number of community members and being able to show outcomes and impact by the end of it all is really important. So if you do a blog post, then you should be able to see how many people were engaged and how they were impacted and what they got out of that blog post. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just a follow-up. So I want to reconfirm. So like, for instance, let's say you're doing like an online magazine or an online blog, you would have to also include your target audience, or like just how many people you plan on, I guess, your service reaching out to. Like you'd want that to be included in the description or in
right.
like the paperwork.
Yeah, you will need that to include. You need to include that in the application. Like, what's your estimated number of people you're going to impact?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Farah, when you sign up for the program, we're gonna provide like an actual draft of what the application is, and we're gonna make sure like there's a question that asks you that, so you'll know like, okay, this is where I input that information. And it's just giving an estimate of like, let's say you do your archiving project, if it's the final product is online, I'm assuming, or whatever it is, just an estimate of how many people might show up to that, the launch of it, or like whatever it is, or how many people are involved in the process of making that like the event possible and all of that, just giving an estimate of that.
And I'm also going to add that like, for example, you're going to do a magazine, like think of how you can put people into like seeing the magazine, being involved in the magazine and what the content is. You could even do like a social media, like live event, a Facebook live event, where you just have like an hour of, just having anybody drop in and you guys are discussing about like the magazine or the blog post that you put together. Like that's a way for you to actually have specific metrics of how it impacted the community. Because I'm thinking like if you put like, for example, an online magazine story out there and just like let it be and like let people engage, it's not going to help you think about like get the metrics. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Okay,
We
cool.
have some
Thanks.
questions in the chat. Thank you, Farah. The last question was from Aisha. Will we be working in teams?
So good question. So for this project, you are required for the $1,500 grant to have a group, and I think Christina mentioned it should be at least 2 or 3 people. So either you can look for youth who are like-minded, who want to work with you on the project, that you can work together with. So it could be friends, it could be peers, it could be colleagues, whoever it is. And that's kind of the approach that we recommend. So you are required to work for the $1,500 grant in small groups, but I believe, Christina, you said maybe for the $250, you can do it as an individual, but we're encouraging people to apply for the $1,500 one.
Yeah, and I encourage them to apply for the $1,500 one too, because I feel like when you're working in a team, you learn a lot more, and you also have more resources from the people you're working with, right? And because when you work by yourself, sometimes you kind of have to like do everything on your own, which sometimes is a lot. So I encourage you to work in teams, as Khalid is saying. And so it has to be a team of 3 or more people. So
we have some hands up. Manzura?
Hi, I just had one question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. I noticed that the timeline said that the whole program application process would end near end of November, and then the project has to be completed by end of February, it looked like. So does that mean your project would basically be happening from December to January, like February? Those 3 months are the timeline for the project?
Yeah, basically, yeah, it is a tight timeline, and again, the February 28th, it's kind of a government or Rising Youth deadline. It's not like our personal timeline, but so if you submit by November 28th, like Christina said, you can hear back any time between 8 to 30 days, but hopefully on the faster end. And as soon as you're approved for the funding, you can start your project. So hopefully by mid to end December, you get your funding, and then you'll have 2 months or more to actually implement it. So when you make your plan, you should probably plan for starting your project early January or late December.
Yeah, just to add to that.
Yeah,
oh, sorry. Just to add to that, it's going to take it's taken our team 8 days to approve these grants, and so it shouldn't take us too long to get to that. So yeah, I think between a week and 2 weeks is the max. But 30 days only if you will need to keep fleshing out your idea further. That's the only thing.
And I had one more follow-up question, I guess, on that. let's say you do have an idea of the project that you would want to start, would you recommend like starting it a bit or researching it and trying to get an idea of what you will do before, like during the application process, or just recommend waiting until you receive funding and finalize that before you even start?
I recommend doing it through the process because, like we said and Christina said, you're essentially guaranteed to get the funding. Again, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. So you should, and even if there's some reason you don't meet the criteria, you won't be rejected. We'll just reach out to you afterwards to kind of help fix that part of your application. So you are essentially guaranteed the funding, so you can move forward with, doing your research and like preparing your project from that end. Christina, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you answered it really well. Yeah.
Does
Perfect.
that
Thank you.
answer your question?
Yeah, that answered it. Thank you, Khalida and Christina.
All right. Okay, we have Rubina had her hand up.
I have got a question.
Sure. We'll go in order. So I think we had Rubina, we had Shoheba, and then we'll have Ramiz.
Hi, so for the funding of 1500, so it needs to be a group of 3 or more, correct? Do they have to be also 30 and below their age limits, or they can be older? 30 and below. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the project, yeah, go ahead, Christina.
So the person who works on the person who submits the application has to be within that age group, but they can collaborate with somebody who's not, according to court, eligible within the criteria. So like a 25-year-old could work with a 35-year-old, but the person who actually puts the application has to be that person who's 25. Does that make sense? But they can work with older people. So we've seen that happen.
Okay.
Or younger people. Yeah.
Okay, that are 2 basic, like the person who applies for it needs to be within that age limit, but the other 2 doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. The team members don't have to be.
Okay, thank you so much.
Cool. Shoheba?
Salam everyone. Thank you Khalida and for all the organizers, Marjila and Rubina, for organizing this. This is a fantastic initiative and I wish I knew this when I was a little bit younger. I had reached out to Khalida for the same question because I'll be 31 in about 2 weeks, but I will be partnering with my sister and she'll submit the application because she's in the age group. But I have 2 very simple questions. So the first question is for Christina from Raising Youth, is where is the funding coming from? Is it strictly from the Government of Canada?
Yes, it's from the government, yeah.
Okay, so let's say we were to do an online webinar or something along those lines. Would the participants be limited to those only residing or being in Canada?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Like generally, we would like you to engage Canadian communities because
yes.
It's Canadian grant. We also encouraging Canadian youth to apply. So we would encourage you to engage people here specifically because we know like our communities also face different challenges.
Of course.
But if you engage virtually and engage people who are outside, I would say don't only engage international communities, try and engage people here as well. So find a way to have that balance. So you can also show that you are engaging communities here as well. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because the idea that I have, if I were to send materials to people, it would be only the Canadian peoples to send materials to. But then if somebody wanted to just attend, like for example, we're planning on some like educational lectures and things, and some guest lectures, is that we don't want to just limit it to Canadian youth, and maybe American Afghan youth would want to participate as well, and they can participate just in viewing the kind of lectures and that kind of thing, because I believe that our community is not small, but I believe we have some things to improve with engagement. But if we can extend engagement to other communities, I would also like to strengthen the Afghan diaspora community, regardless if they're just in Canada or just in America, just in the UK. So those are my questions, but thank you for the amazing presentation. And I'm so looking forward to this.
I'm happy to hear that, yeah.
Thank you so much, Shoiba. Ramiz, you had a question.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much for organizing this. It's an amazing session, and thanks for your time doing this on a weekend. My question is in regards to the reporting of the project. what is the reporting requirements, and do we need to keep the documents or the receipts after the project is closed? For how long? And what are specific requirements of the reporting in terms of spending the budget? And my second question is, when working with newcomers or the refugee community, should we be focusing only on Afghan refugees or newcomers in the Afghan community, or it can be anyone else? Or does it actually need to be with newcomers or refugees, or it just can be Canadian-born population as well? And my third question is, the person receiving the honorarium, for example, needs to be in Canada, or it can be outside Canada? That's it.
I can take a shot at the questions. I think I already forgot your third one, but I might ask you to remind me. So the first one was reporting requirements. So for reporting, that's a good point. You do have to keep your receipts. You will be required to make a little grant report, and it's something that we will be going over at our grant writing and workshop next week about like all those little details. We just didn't want to like overwhelm you at these information session, but we will be giving you a good idea of like what exactly do you have to do throughout the process and documentation. But any receipts you have, you should keep. You'll be asked to kind of submit a report summarizing that. And in your report, there will be questions asking about the impact you had. So you'll be asked to reflect on your initiative. So how did you feel? What went well? What didn't go well? So it's not like a scary report. It's just a chance for you to like let Rising Youth know like what happened with your project and what was the impact. And so we'll be giving you a sample and all of that next week as well. And yeah, I think I'll keep it general like that for now, if that's okay. And next week we'll go into more detail. And Christina, I don't know if you want to add anything really like important about it that maybe I missed there.
No, I think you know, you're right on the money. Yeah, definitely. Like it should be like just essentially just 4 questions around who you're engaging, what was the impact, what was the outcome, and that's why, you know, when I believe somebody asked a question earlier about, you know, projects and how you engage, and that's why I said, like, you know, you have to find a way to be able to understand how people actually were impacted by your work. And so if you're doing a social media engagement, make sure you understand how participants felt about your engagement. So yeah, so it's 4 simple questions I will show you next week.
Okay, we have one more question in the chat.
I'm sorry, Margela. Ramiz had 2 more questions.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he gave 3, yeah. So the second one I think was about, do you have to only engage Afghan youth and newcomers, or can you do other communities? So this partnership is meant for Afghan youth, but technically in terms of Rising Youth, you don't have to technically limit it to Afghan youth. Like if you want to, kind of like what Shoheba was mentioning, like if you, let's say you have a webinar, you can make it open to a broader community, as long as, you know, like you're primarily reaching out to your target audience. Yeah, like we don't have restrictions on, oh no, you can only engage Afghans and no one else. Like this is open to other youth as well. But ideally, we would like for you to focus on engaging the Afghan community, because this is a partnership between IDEATION and Rising Youth. And we want to fill a gap in our community. And I think the second part of that was, does it have to be like citizens? And was that correct, Ramiz? Like Canadian citizens for?
No, I think you answered the second part as well. But the third question was the person receiving the honorarium, for example, the facilitator or the trainer needs to be someone in Canada, or it can be outside Canada, for example, in the US or in any other country. And I have another question too. So I have a project idea that I've been thinking for the past 5-6 months now, and discussing with some of my friends here. And it really cannot be something that I want to propose just for once. And it's a long-term idea. So is there a possibility that projects can be extended, or similar ideas can be an idea that's implemented can be explored for future funding or for an extension if it's a wonderful idea? And lastly, if you receive multiple applications or proposal for a similar idea, for example, working with the Afghan community here, I think receiving applications from 20 people, I think there will be a lot of same ideas. So what would be your preference?
So a lot of great questions. I'll let Christina take the first one about whether people outside of Canada can be facilitators and receive honoraria.
Yeah, Yeah, you can pay anybody who's outside of Canada as well. But I would encourage you again, if possible, if there's somebody within the community, within Canadian community who can do that job, find them and pay them. But of course, if you can't find them, you can also pay somebody abroad. And these questions will be asked by our grants team once your application is in. Yeah, but I don't see any issue with that, any specific issue with that at all.
Great. Okay. And then your second question about, if you have a project idea and you want to expand it later, I think that's what you were saying. Like you get funding now, you have an idea with your friends, and then later expand it. I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, it's if your project has long-term impacts and it can continue, I think that's great. Yeah, like I don't think there's any restrictions about where you can take the project later on. But just note that the $1,500 does have to be used by February 28th. So when you're thinking about sustainability of your project, in terms of funding, you might have to consider how you will continue it afterwards. And then your last question was about if there's groups with similar projects, submitting similar projects. And that's a great point, because obviously if there's 3 groups doing like the same thing, we can avoid that. So that's also one reason that we're asking people to sign up by next Friday, because if there's maybe some ideas that are really similar, we might connect different groups. But otherwise, it's just a way of us trying to if people have the same idea and the same passion and we can make them work together and amplify the impact, that's something that we'll consider doing. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions, Ramiz.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
No problem. And feel free to message me afterwards if you have any extra questions.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you. There's actually a question in the chat, Khalida. Is there someone we can talk to after this meeting? But before signing up, about the eligibility of our initiative, yes, 100%. I think Khalida and I can make ourselves available for an additional half an hour, 45 minutes. We'll stay on this call if anyone has any questions, or you can send us an email at team@ID.ca and we can arrange a way to chat with you in order to discuss the eligibility of your initiative. That is what ACII is here for, to support you and to assist you in developing your idea and your projects. But if no one has any more questions, we are 12 minutes over time. Yeah. So again, I would say if you do have further questions, please email us at team@id.ca. You can send us an Instagram DM, you can send us a Twitter DM, a Facebook message. We will get back to you.
Mm-hmm. And just a final note that we'll have our resources available on our website tomorrow, and we'll be emailing you once it's live. So you'll have all this information on our website. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. We hope this was helpful. Thank you to Christina for making time on a Saturday to be here with us. And again, for the partnership and supporting the Afghan community. We're so excited and we can't wait to see the ideas that all of you have. And we look forward to helping you throughout the way to launch it and make everything a reality. So